speaker. Anthony Tannus Wright is the Chief of Staff of the Department of Literacy in the Ministry of Education in Brazil, and it is really exciting to see that two ministries are working together, hopefully working together, to advance this common goal of moving homeschooling forward in the National Congress in Brazil. Anthony Tannus Wright is the Chief of Staff for the Department of Literacy in the Ministry of Education. He's a graduate of Thomas More College, has 2 master's degrees from the Pontifical Catholic University of Paraná, and is a PhD candidate at the Leiden Law School. Chief of Staff Wright, please, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Michael. I'd also like to thank Trudy for all the emails she sent us organizing the forum. Well, first of all, I'm going to give in my speech a more cultural approach to the issue, and Sergio did a bit of a legal approach, and Angela Gandra did what would say a human rights look into the issue. And so I'll do a cultural one, and then be open to questions also if there are any. First of all, if I'll give a title for the speech, although it's not properly a lecture, it would be Home Education, a Policy Towards Freedom and Democracy, right? I think home education is truly a free education in all its sense. And also I think it's very pro-democratic, understanding democracy in its correct terminology. Now, in this brief explanation, I would like to address 3 things. First of all, present how the anti-homeschooling arguments in Brazil are drawn, how do they work, and then give a very brief refutation and rebut them. Then show how behind all those arguments is truly a totalitarian mindset. Behind anti-homeschooling principles, there is, in our day and age, very strong principles towards states controlling our lives, and I think that's surely very dangerous. And then lastly, I would like to explain a bit how the strategy in Brazil of anti-homeschoolers is the use of ambiguous and debatable terms, which in public debate, before you even start creating policy, they try to convince Congress of why homeschooling is wrong and how we cannot start debating them in their own terminology. So the first 3 types of arguments you see, and has been mentioned before in this panel, is regarding socialization. That's the first thing many of them say, that kids are going to be at home full time. They're not going to be, they're not going to grow well, or they're going to have some problems, or they're not going to, meet people and so forth. The second, and they're not going to encounter diversity, which is always one thing they all are always so worried about. The second argument, in Brazil at least, is that they say parents will not be able to teach their kids, and they accuse them of poor academic achievement. And that's funny because we can't even say that because we don't even have data in Brazil for now. But that's what they already start their arguments. And thirdly, what they try to do is bring together families against schools and schools against families. The anti-homeschooling people say that as soon as you have homeschooling, teachers will be undervalued, and they try to bring the whole approach of a war between families and teachers. So the first counter argument about socialization is pretty obvious and has been said before. Kids don't start socializing with friends, they start socializing with their parents. I think if you have a kid, you're going to see that the baby starts, enjoying time with their mother, and then with his dad, and then with siblings, and then obviously with cousins and uncles and so forth. And obviously, parents have friends. So friends will will have children, and they're going to meet each other, and there'll be no surprise that children will meet children. Another factor of socialization is that they want the kids to encounter diversity. And that's an interesting topic here, because diversity, for those that are anti-homeschooling, means, it's sort of a realm of meeting everything that's different and pluralism, and then not necessarily it's good in itself. For them, it's good. For them, diversity is all something good and new, and you have to meet people that are different than you. But really, the word diversity underlines sort of a dangerous agenda, I would say, which tries to introduce, like is being said before here by someone, of gender ideology and a wrong idea of family, and also moral principles, which can be quite questionable. The second point of the poor academic achievement is a twofold answer here. First of all, we know that public school system in Brazil, sadly, but truly, is not very good. And you can know that by simply checking international and national exams statistics. So homeschooling has a great chance of succeeding in Brazil because parents will have more time to spend with their kids and properly educate them. But however, we can't even prove how homeschooling will be successful in Brazil. As Sergio had mentioned, we don't really have it a homeschooling allowed yet. So it's hard for us to measure how homeschoolers are doing in public and national exams because it's not something we can measure. The third point of undervalued teachers, they try to say that as soon as you allow homeschooling, parents are going to start fighting with the professors and teachers, and you're going to create sort of a dichotomy between homeschooling and household and so forth. And that's really not the case. I think it's rather the contrary. I do believe that homeschooling will work together with teachers, will work together with schools, just like Angela mentioned right now. I think they both will work hands on hands. And I do think that parents might want to homeschool for early education and then maybe put their kids in school afterwards for secondary education, how I've seen in the US before. So I don't think there's a war between homeschooling and schooling. I think it's something that both are going to help each other. And lastly, what I'd like to say is regarding the ambiguous terminology, in Brazil, it's very common to hear people discuss homeschooling, and especially the anti-homeschooling crowd. They say that, parents that want to homeschool, they teach their kids only what they want to teach, and they are sort of using their kids as property of the family, which is absurd. But that's been said before. Also, they say homeschooling disrespects the children's right of education, and also is some sort of imprisonment of the children and a control over them. All this terminology and sort of sentences which are seen constantly in newspapers or in some congressman mouths and so forth, and speeches, is absurd. I think sadly, people forget what natural rights are and natural law. And I think families obviously comes before the state. And sometimes people put the state before the families. And I think that's where totalitarianism is very strong. Another factor is also what they call diversity and acceptance is exactly what they don't do. They don't accept homeschoolers. They don't accept the diversity of having different type of education. And they wrongly put freedom in their mouths as well. When they say they want freedom, they don't allow other people to have freedom of choosing at least the minimum, which is how to educate their kids. That's pretty much it. As a solution to Brazil's cultural thing, what we're trying to do, as Sergio said, is to try to pass a law which will help families simply do what they can, which is the right to educate their children.